Okay, hello, folks. We're back with another session today. Today we're looking at um, Genesis 1. We're going to start in verse 28 and continue from there. If you have your Bibles ready, please open up to Genesis 1:28. Otherwise, just listen and I'll read and you can follow along as I read. So let's read this passage. We'll read from verse 28 to 31. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about this. In verse 27, before this, we saw that God created mankind, in his own image. We've talked about that last time. And this passage ends that he created the male and female. Okay, so we have God creating two genders, two sexes. God says that in order for you to reproduce, there will be it will be a shared endeavor. He says, "Be fruitful and increase in number." That literally means go and have children, man and woman, join together to produce offspring, fill the earth. Okay, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish and the birds, right? And every living creature that moves on the ground. God gives a mandate here for mankind to have children, to reproduce, to join together, man and woman, and become rulers of the earth. I should clarify that he declares mankind as rulers of the world. Whether it's birds or fish or animals, they are categorically considered to be our wardens. We are looking after them. We are their superiors. We are their kings and rulers. Of course, as I mentioned before, that doesn't give us the permission to abuse them or misuse them, but definitely gives us the permission to do with them as we see fit. Verse 29, God says, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. And it was so. Okay. So God then clearly states that then all the plants are considered as food for the animals and food for man. So initially, God's intent wasn't for us to eat animals. Initially, God's intent was for us to eat all the plants, vegetables, fruit, whatever was growing, whatever was green and growing, was initially designed to be food for us and the animals that inhabit the earth. That changes later on. We'll get to that. But God is definitely setting up hierarchies. So basically, he is setting up a structure of command, him being on top, right? As the creator. And one word that we don't usually associate with God is that he also is the owner of us, the animals, the plants, the earth, the universe. Um, and that's kind of an unusual thing to say, that we are his property. And we don't want to think about being somebody's property, because for us, the connotation, of course, is slavery, or the connotation is somehow imprisonment, and that we are in somebody's grasp, that we belong to them, and that we somehow lose freedom and the ability to live and make choices independently. So, but think of it this way: if you have a car that you designed, it's unusual, but some people have the technical and engineering skills and mechanics behind them, that they can actually build a car from parts. So you have a car that you designed, you built, everything in it, from the radio to the engine to the exhaust system to the chassis to the body. You actually designed and put the windows in it as well. Okay, but let's go a little bit further. Let's talk about the metal and the plastics and the cloth and the glass that goes into making a car, and all the little electronics that go into it. You made those too. You made all of those. And then let's go into the raw materials, the iron that is dug out of the ground, and the sand that goes into making the glass, the silicon sand, and the rubber that goes into the tires from the rubber tree. Well, you made those too. Every imaginable thing that the raw resources that went into the manufacturing of all the components, you have made those too. And then, of course, you made the earth that produced all of those resources, and you designed that as well. And then you made and designed the universe that the earth sits in. So whose car is it? Are you able to say that this is my car? Yeah, it is. It's so much more so than when we say this is my car right now. Now we say, well, this is my car because I paid money for it, and I have a little piece of paper that says this is my vehicle. But ultimately, that vehicle is God's. That vehicle and everything it's been made out of, and everyone who's worked on it and made it, and absolutely everything this vehicle uses to run, to drive, to exist is God's. And so the brains that were given to the people designing it and making it, and the skills they have, are also God's. They were given there, they were designed. And so as we look at the universe and all the intricate mechanisms, all the laws of physics, all the matter and energy and light and everything that's in it, everything is His. And so as we look now at this last day of creation, the sixth day of creation, we can see that the universe and everything in it is the Lord's. Think on that for a second. Think of your body. Think of the clothes on your back. Think of the hairs on your head. I don't have a lot, but they're all the Lord's. This is kind of an unusual thing. The money in your wallet, the wallet itself, your family, your friends, everything you care about, everything that you value, your car, obviously, your home or house, or all the furniture in it, everything you do and everywhere you go, it is the Lord's. There is no exceptions. We are completely His. He then creates man in His own image to rule, to take dominion, to look over His creation. And He says, all of this, all the animals and all the plants are yours. Rule over the animals. Use the plants for food. You are made in my image. You are designed to rule. You have the power to reproduce, to have children. You have the power to make decisions. You have the power to be creative. You have the power to communicate, right? To speak languages, to write down books. You have the power and the intellect, right? To store information, to pass on information, to ask questions and solve questions. You are so far above the animals, right, that you are like a god to them. You are their ruler and their king. Right? I want you now to fill this earth, populate it, fill it. Don't overfill it, but fill it. Fill it so that every place, every corner of the world is under man's domain. Right? So that all the animals everywhere are under man's domain. Right? And there will be plants, of course, for you and the animals to eat, to thrive on. It's kind of a strange thing to think about, that God's initial intent was that we are reflecting his ability to rule and reign as God on this planet, to be his image, to be his representatives on this planet, right? As part of his property, as part of what he designed, we are the ones that look after it, the stewards, so to speak, of God's creation. So, continuing now to chapter 2, the first 3 verses there say this: Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing, so on the seventh day he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Okay. So here we now get into some theological words that we're going to have to explain a little bit. First, let's just say, thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. So as God had finished creating the universe, the world, and everything that's in it, this verse acknowledges that this is a vast array, that this is something big and complicated. And we know that the planet that we live on is huge. To fly around the planet or to take a boat around the planet, that is a massive, massive voyage. That's something that really we've been able to do with these only over the last 100 years or so. It's a massive, massive place where up until recently there were still places on Earth that have never been visited by people. Huge areas of jungles or mountains or deserts where people have never been. There's less and less, probably very few of those places nowadays, but that's recent. The Earth is a huge place. And of course, we know that the solar system that we live in is massive. And of course, so on and so forth. Vast array, vast arrangement, vast construction. It's complicated. It's big. It's something that for us is difficult to explore even. God has completed the heavens and the earth. Everything that he wanted to put into it and all the design he wanted to implement was finished. There was nothing else for him to do. What he set out to do, he did. His plan, as it was finished. So that tells us something about God, that he does not leave things open-ended, unfinished, that there is a design that he comes up with, and then he finishes the design. The design is not infinite, never-ending. The design isn't God. He is separate from that. Just as when I set out to paint a picture or build a house, right? I start with a design, and there comes a time, a day, where I say, it's done. I finished. I finished painting the picture. I finished building the house. I have finished what I set out to do. So God does the same thing. he makes a design, he completes it. Okay, so by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. And of course, the first question we ask, well, why is God resting? And why, if he's done, is he just resting for one day? What does he do after the seventh day? What is this all about? Let's talk a little bit about this. The number 7, of course, has significance. The book of Genesis that we're reading right now is known as the book of beginnings because it starts with the words in the beginning. The book of Genesis sets a precedent. It is a book of firsts, but it's also a book of that sets a pattern for the rest of Scripture. The number 7 here is definitely tied in with the completion, with the finished work of creation. And so this number very much follows through the entire Bible, and it's associated with the fullness, the sort of perfect completion and fullness of something. It is a number of being complete. Okay, it is a number that very much signifies that what is done is perfect, in the sense that it does not need anything else, does not need any more work to be done. Okay, so the seventh day is very much a time where God now says that this time is a time of completion. There was a time for creating the universe. There was a time for creating mankind, and now there is a time where everything is completed. It is done. So the seventh day, God, it says he rested. The rest, of course, comes with the fact that nothing else needs to be done. Okay, and it's got nothing to do with the fact that God might have been tired, or God might have needed to take a day off. No, absolutely not. It just means that with completion, with finishing, comes rest. Okay, and the idea of rest is also a theme of the Bible that starts here right now. God works and completes, and that is an entryway into a period of rest. This theme, of course, is very important because it spells certain things out for us, that it is not us that work, it is God that works and rests. The rest, of course, we associate with Sundays, we associate with weekends, or Saturdays for some folks. It is the day, it is the Sabbath. It is a day dedicated to the Lord. But the rest that we enter is because of the Lord's work. It's because of him being able to finish the work that he has set out to do. Okay. So it says, then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. So there's two words there that I want to talk about, and those words are blessed and holy. They may have certain meanings for us, especially if we have grown up in church culture. they're words that a lot of people don't fully understand. What is a blessing? What does it mean to be blessed or to give a blessing? And in its original meaning, it just means to speak well of something. So really, to say to somebody, "Wow, you did a good job with that," or "I really like what you have done," and um, give him a compliment, maybe, but really it is to speak well of somebody. And it is to say, like the Lord says, right, that He, sorry, um, sorry, I'm just going back to verse 31. It says, God saw all that He had made, and it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning. So God, in this verse, looks at His creation and he basically judges it and says it's very good. Well, whether he says or not, we don't know, but he looks at it and acknowledges that it is very good. It is very good. He is pleased. It is just as he had designed it. Okay. So for him now to bless it is to actually make a statement. Is for God to actually say, "This is very good. I am very pleased with it, and I am glad that it is the way it is." Okay, so why is this important that he speaks it? Well, we've only gotten one chapter into the Bible, and what have we noticed about God's words and God's when God speaks? Whenever God opens His mouth, whenever God says certain things, whenever a statement comes out of God, what do we see? We see His words going into action. So when God says, "Let there be light," there is light. When God says, "Let the waters above separate from the waters below," it happens just like that. God's words have a real physical impact. Okay, so what He says becomes, His words come to life. His words have power and motion and action behind them, right? His words are not just words as we speak them. And of course, what we say and how we say it can have huge impacts and repercussions on those that hear it. With words, of course, wars can be started, but wars can be averted as well. We can hurt somebody with our words, and we can heal them with our words. Right? We can set all sorts of actions into motion by giving commands to people. Right? We can ask somebody or ask them for forgiveness. But sometimes we speak and they're just empty words. Sometimes we can make promises that we never follow through on. Sometimes we can even lie and deceive people. So our words are not like God's in many ways. That His words always do what they express. So when God blesses something, so when God speaks well of something, it is so. When God says to someone, you have done well, and you will live long and have many children, my good and faithful servant, it becomes so. That blessing, those words, are now a promise that will be fulfilled. When God blesses something, when God speaks well of somebody, that is the case. So It's not even a promise, but those words become whatever God says. So here God blesses the seventh day. He says, it is good. I mean, and sorry, these are my words now. But if God says the seventh day is good, is necessary, if the seventh day, if he says the seventh day is a day of rest, it is so. It is so. Um, and made it holy. So now God says uh, the seventh day is set apart. The word holy means something that is not ordinary, something that is not common, everyday, regular. It is the exact opposite of that. It is something that is special, set apart for God, set apart for special purposes of God, set apart for special assignments that God has given. Something holy is something that is separate from the ordinary for the purposes of God. Okay? So God basically says there is a day, okay, 1 out of 7, that is set apart for my purposes. Okay? And the purpose for this day is rest. Now, why? what a strange thing to do, to be busy for 6 days, creating the universe and everything in it, and then to say, now at the end, there is a time of rest. It is not a rest for God, but it is a rest with God. It is a day where the creation, especially mankind, the kings of creation, will spend thinking on me, being with me, where now they enter into the rest that is the result of all my work. Interesting. This concept follows through, of course. We will get to that later on, especially when we talk about the Israelites as they eventually go from being captives in Egypt to entering into Canaan, or for Christians as they leave their lives behind and enter into the rest that has been achieved by Jesus Christ. These are themes that are very important in the Bible, and they're set right here, the very first chapter of Genesis. We see God laying down some very, very strong, very, very basic foundations that are unchangeable. The book of beginnings has many of those. The whole idea of separating things, the whole idea of having things set apart for purposes of God, the idea of rest, and the idea of blessing as well, the idea of speaking well of somebody. It's the opposite of curse when you actually say something negative about somebody. And of course, when God curses, when he says something that there will be now repercussions for your dishonesty or deceitfulness or whatever it is, disobedience. When God says these are the repercussions now for what you have done, it is so. Then it becomes that his words will always be fulfilled. They never fall unfulfilled. So, we can say things to people, but our words, may or may not come true, especially if we're not being obedient to God, if we're not fulfilling His will, if we're not working towards doing what he has asked us to do. So that's probably enough for today. That is the 7 days of creation. That is the first week of the universe. There is a lot more, of course, but I'm hoping you're getting a general idea of how to read the Bible and how to think about some of these concepts. We'll get to that in the next lesson too. So please join us again. Thank you.